Hi and welcome. My name is Morten Olpas and I love shooting. I have been shooting for most of my life. Started when I was a young kid, growing up, probably 3 years old, making my own bow and arrows, building slingshots, blow guns as well, out of old electrical tubes. My grandmother did pottery, so we had an endless supply of clay, roll up to little balls and blow, and mainly on the neighbors' windows. But I've just always enjoyed it. There's something about it that just appeals to me. I have shot rifles getting a bit older, got into shooting rifles at a club, spending quite a lot of my Fridays in my teenage years doing that. I had a little break in my mid-20s, doing other things. I was traveling, and about 4 years ago I sort of rediscovered archery. We were going on a holiday and I thought, you know what could we bring with us? We were going to a holiday in a remote place, house in the middle of nowhere, and I thought, you know what could we take that can entertain us and the kids? And I thought, bow and arrow, everybody likes a bow and arrow. And I don't know about everyone else, but it took off for me. And the rest is pretty much history. Now, it has been a very, very steep learning curve for me, trying to get better and more accurate with my bow. I have watched a lot of YouTube videos. I have read a lot, trying to educate myself the best I can. And I just want to try and give back a little bit of the little I know and some of my own experiences. Now, when I first started shooting, I was pretty quickly getting fairly good. But there was a few things holding me back. You can teach yourself good form. There's lots of videos. There's lots of articles. Probably the best thing to do is to get a good coach. But for a lot of people, it can sometimes be difficult. When you join a field archery club, like I did, you get a little bit of coaching. And that's mainly just to make you safe in the woods, know the rules. But you can teach yourself still to shoot with fairly decent form. But what I found the most difficult was actually the mental aspect of the shot. And I know I'm not the only one. This is the problem with shooting. And some people, you would call it shot anticipation. There is words like target panic. It's just a different words for the same thing. And that is that when you are drawn back and you are aiming and you know that that's going to be a release of that arrow, it can be very hard to control because your brain your subconscious take over and will just either release that arrow out of your control, or some people even find it very difficult to let go and they get a very shoddy release and they say, oh, I plucked the string. And I mean, when you start thinking about your release and, oh, I really got to let go, that's when things go wrong. So about 3 years ago, I decided to do something about it. Again, through YouTube articles, I came across Joel Turner, Shot IQ, and I enrolled in his online course. And he describes many different methods, or probably different versions of the same method to curing target panic. And I went along with the feather to nose technique. 3 years ago is probably when I started doing it, and it has. It's been 2 steps forwards and 1 step back, and it's been extremely difficult. But I always knew that this was the right thing to do because I quite quickly gained control of my shot. I could draw back, I could aim, and I could start sort of enjoying the aspect of just watching that arrow fly, without anticipating when that was going to happen. There's a few things though I wanted to talk to you about when it comes to this, because it has been 3 years and it has at times just been very frustrating. So hopefully, maybe watching this, hopefully it will help you a little bit. So just to give you an example, when I first started out, I've got a couple of my old arrows here and a couple of new ones as well. So to get that feather to touch my nose, this is the distance I was looking at. So this is the distance from the feather to the knot groove. All right, so that's one of my first arrows. So let's have a look at one of my recent arrows that I find work fairly well. So have a look at this. That's the difference. Oh no, actually there's a knot groove up there. So that is the difference, and it is big. It's a bloody huge difference actually. And I was finding in the beginning that I was coming back to anchor, and I still had to pull a lot to get that feather to touch my nose. But I did change a few things. Some of the things was conscious. Other things have just been a slow progression of my archery. So I used to anchor quite low. I used to anchor in the corner of your mouth, and when you're using that feather to nose technique, it's not a very good place it's not a very place to anchor, to be honest, because you're quite low on your face, and for that feather to be all the way up there, unless you're shooting with a fixed crawl, which you can do. Unfortunately, that's not allowed. Shooting in the style of bow, or the bow style I'm shooting in, your one finger does have to touch the nock. But you could shoot with a fixed crawl, and you could then angle wherever you want. You know, just as long as that arrow is in line with your nose, so when the feather comes back, it will touch it. It caused me huge frustration in the past because I tried to work with an anchor that was basically too low for the technique I was trying to use. So changing my anchor to a higher anchor, I now anchor with my index finger, and it comes in right under the cheekbone. And the cheekbone almost gives me like a slide, so I can anchor here in the front, right there, and then I will be pulling back along that cheekbone until the feather touches the nose, and that will then just send the arrow off. And that brings me on to another thing, is draw length as well. It's something I haven't. I'll show you guys a little bit later. I do have some of my very first arrows that I made up, or that I had when I started shooting, and they were about 20 inches long. This arrow here that I'm shooting now is an uncut Victory Vap arrow, and I believe it's about 30 inches long, which is quite a short arrow really, but and I'm drawing back to I've got this little top hat protector on the arrow, and it is just about to touch the arrow rest when I pull it back. So I've gone from about 28 inches of draw length to maybe just under 30 inches. And again, it's not really a conscious decision. It's not that I particularly want to increase my draw length. What I do find is that using these pulling techniques, being drawn back and have very good alignment and expansion, it will just cause you to open up that shot, and in most cases it increases the draw length, and that's certainly what it's done for me. So finding the right distance of the feather to the knot groove has been, I mean, I've fletched up arrows, I've fletched up 10 arrows, and I thought, yes, I've nailed it now, I've found the right distance, and I've gone back into the woods and I've been shooting, and then, you know what, no, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. I've either been coming back, bam, to anchor, and then the feathers touch my nose prematurely, and what you don't want is for that to happen, because what you want to do is you want to come back to anchor, you want to have, maybe, I mean, for me, it is really quite a small distance. So we're talking about maybe 4 millimeters, 3-4 millimeters, and coming back, that you will have, when you're back at anchor, 4 millimeters, about 4 millimeters from that feather to your nose seems to work quite well for me. But what you don't want is that feather coming back, touching your nose, you collapsing a little bit to bring that feather further forward, and then starting pulling again. For me, again, coming back to anchor, have good expansion already, feel the engaging those back muscles, and then just a slight extra pull without moving your head. And all I'm doing is I would have this left hand, I'm shooting right-handed, so my bow arm is the left hand, fixed, and I would just come back, and I'll just have that elbow rotating backwards, and then the shot will go as soon as that feather touches the nose. But it will take experimenting, and it leads me on to that there are other psycho triggers that might work better for you. I did try with a grip sear, so basically have a little tap on my grip that I will place a nail on, and I will increase the pressure on that little sear, and as soon as my nail popped off, the shot will go. It didn't work for me. I tried it, and I can see that how it could be very accurate, but I was trying to anticipate that. The pressure, I found it very difficult to maintain a steady pressure on that nail, and I would almost try and like sort of anticipate it still. Where I find that with the feather to nose, because it causes that natural draw anyway, and what you really want, you want to pull through those shots anyway. That's what Olympic archers do. Even though I do field archery, I still recognise that Olympic archers are extremely accurate. You know, and we can definitely learn a lot from them. And what they use a clicker on there that will go over the tip of the arrow, and so it's a little metal bit going over the tip of the arrow. So when the arrow comes back, it will draw back, and then that metal bit will just slide off, and we make a little click, and that will give them the trigger to release the shot. And that is a pulling psycho trigger, basically. And the feather to nose is the same. Finding that right length is the tricky part, and I would say that you will probably have to experiment quite a lot, and it will probably change throughout. I've done it now for 3 years, and I am still making slight changes to that. When it works, though, it works very well. So what I want to do now is I want to take you guys outside, show you a bit of how I shoot using this technique. I'm going to bring a couple of arrows. Somewhere the feathers are sitting in the wrong place for me, and somewhere sitting in the right place for me. Anyway, I'll see you outside. All right. Alright, hello again. We've now gone outside, and yeah, first of all, I'm just going to show you something. I mentioned about my first arrows. This arrow is an arrow I lost in the woods, and it was missing for, you can see the tip is all rusted, but the arrow was probably missing for almost 3 years. And it was found by someone else the other day, just turned up, and look at the difference. That's the difference. If I try, well, I can't shoot these arrows anymore, or this arrow anymore. It's too short. It will drop off the rest before I'm at full draw. But that's the difference. The difference to my draw length from when I first started shooting. So don't get too frustrated with yourself, because if you are first setting out in the progression of your archery, things will change. They will change less and less as you progress. You will settle down, and it's therefore it's important to then make sure that they settle down into something that is both good form, where you have good alignment, where you have a good repeatable form. I think is what you really want to try and achieve. So anyway, I'm going to take a couple of shots now, and we'll talk about it a little bit sort of as we go along. So I'm going to take a shot now first with the arrows I've just made. I think that's the sort of the correct distance, what I find to work well for me distance wise with that feather distance in relation to the knock groove. So let's see how it goes. So I have, I've got a target down here. I've got a deer. It's 40 yards. It's 40 yards from that wall there. So it's probably about 38. Don't want to cheat. Let's see how we do. All right, decent shot. We'll go and have a look in a minute and see what and talk about it down at the target. But that was a pretty good shot. I'm gonna do one now. It might not be the best shot, but I'll try and talk you through what I do. So I'm not used to talking and shooting. So let's see how we do. So I mean, these are all fairly basic things. Good placement of your feet, correct placement on your hand on the string, a nice loose grip. I mean, I really need to shoot with a sling, otherwise that bow is going to fly out of my hand. And trust me, it has done when I've forgotten to put it on. It's not pretty, especially if you've got a bit of concrete around. It does make a grown man cry. All right. So anyway, good relaxed hand placement. I've got a nice Jaeger grip on my bow that places right on that lifeline in my hand, and I can get pretty good placement every time. I'll bring the bow up. I'm not going to straighten out that left arm. That doesn't work too well for me. I'm going to rotate my right arm, my right elbow backwards, and my left arm forwards. So here we go. Rotate around, anchor right under my cheekbone, and as I'm at aim now, I'm going to draw. Oh, and the shot went. It was an absolutely horrible shot, but we'll see in a minute you'll see in a minute when we get down there. I'm also trying to film it from up here. I've got a scope, digital scope with a camera in it. If I can get it to work, you might be able to see the arrows as I shoot them. But otherwise, I will show you the target once we get down there. These two arrows is with a pretty good distance that works for me with regards to the placement of that feather on the shaft. I'm not going to take one, and I'll just show you this. Okay, so these two are slightly different, but very, very, very slight. You can see I've marked one here with a little dot. So this one here is only a few millimeters further away. If you have a look here. So this is how they look. So it's just ever so slightly further away. But I'm going to show you how it looks when I try and shoot one of these. It was working all right for me for a little while, but I think I had to go back and reduce the distance of the feather to the nock just a little bit, because it was causing me to almost overextend and pulling to a place where I was sort of pulling my head almost out of alignment. It just didn't feel right. I have had days where I shot very well with this, but I think generally it's just not working too well. I mean, let's see how it is today, and it might just give you an idea of what it looks like when you just have to pull too much. All right, so this is the arrow where the feather is just that little bit further away from the nock. So let's have a look. To me, it was getting to that point where I started thinking about it. I started thinking about, when is it going to happen? You know, and once your mind get into that place, it's not a good place to be. You know, you really want to just be focusing on the shot itself, and only the pulling and the rotation of that elbow. That's where your concentration really wants to be. You don't want to have thoughts going through your head saying, when is it going to happen? Is this the right distance of the feather? You know, maybe I should change things. You don't want thoughts like that, you know. Anyway, I'll take another shot. So again, this is the distance where I find it's just that little bit too far away. And now, one of these new arrows. When I say new arrows, the recently fletched out ones, where I think that is a good distance that worked for me. Another thing to say, there's something that I've certainly noticed, is that there is a sweet spot when you're back at full draw and anchor. There is a sweet spot with regards to the timing of when that shot goes off. Too little, it's not good. You don't want to come back and boof, almost it's there. You want to have a good amount of pull. When I say good amount, I would say anything from maybe 2 to 3 seconds of just expansion and pulling before the shot goes off. Any longer than that, it doesn't seem to work very well. And that's when your mind will start wandering, or at least my mind starts wandering, starts thinking about other stuff, and it's not good. I mean, you can make jokes about my attention span, but 3 seconds tends to be max. All right, so let's try. I mean, essentially, this should be a good shot. I think I'll take this shot, and then I think we should go down and have a look. All right, so that was the last shot. We'll go down and have a look, and we'll talk about it down there. Okay, we are down at the target now, yeah, let's talk a little bit about these shots. So first shots of the day. I haven't edited anything. This is just how it was. Cold. I haven't warmed up. Nothing. These are just how these shots are. So anyway, first shot, a little bit high. But this shot was with what I would let's call it the correctly fletched arrows, the good distance, and a little bit high, but otherwise not really a bad line. This here, over here, shot I'm talking, definitely, you know, yeah, I should definitely shut up. Yeah, that's what we can learn from this shot here. So that didn't work very well. These two shots down here, these are the ones you can, well, you can't see it probably from there, but these are the ones that are marked with a little dot here, and they are the ones that just have that feather a little bit too far away. I mean, it's a pretty good group. I mean, it's 38, just short of 40 yards. Not too bad next to each other. What I have found is that once you start getting too far and pulling too far, you're getting further out on your face, and quite often, you know, our faces have a round shape, and the further back, when you start at the front, you can start pretty much under your eye, and the further you draw back, you're also drawing that arrow nock further out to the right, and it does tend to cause more left shots. So that is another consideration when you do decide of this feather placement. That does tend to be a sweet spot where you just get a good alignment also of that arrow under your eye. So that is another thing to consider. So these are the two shots with the arrow a little bit too far away, and then last shot, spot on. You know, you can't fault that. That's where you want them all. I wish I could put them there all the time. I can't, but it's a good shot. So anyway, I think we'll go back inside, and I'm just going to wrap this up with a few things. But see you inside. All right, back indoors. So before I wrap this video up, there's a couple of things I'd like just to show you. When you choose your fletchings, it's important you choose something with the right height. If you choose something that is just too short or shallow, and not tall enough, you're simply not going to be able to reach that nose, no matter how hard you pull. I've tried with a couple of a few different ones. These are fletch, no prep, 250s. If I show you the height, I've got some calipers here. Yeah, so 8.5 millimeters. These boning, they are a shield cut boning. They're probably mainly for compound shooters. Have a look at them. So these are 10 mil high. What I found to work really well, and that is just what's worked well for me, is True Flight 3-inch feathers. So these are the parabolic ones, and if I'm going to shoot feathers, these are the feathers I shoot. 3-inch seems to give me loads of stabilization coming out of the bow, more than enough for me. If you bare shaft your arrows, I mean, you really shouldn't need anything more than this. Height wise, yeah, 13.3 millimeters works really well. Now I do like to use a plastic fletch as well, because I mean, where I live in the UK, get a lot of rain, and feathers and rain just don't do very well. So being able to shoot a parabolic plastic vane that flies pretty much the same as the feathers. They are a bit heavier. On the distances I shoot, I can't see a difference in impact. I think all fletched up, they will add roughly about 15 grains, roughly 15 grains to your arrow weight, but I can't detect any difference. And putting my calipers on there, these are 12.5, and these are AAE Plastifletch veins, and they are the EP26s. So these two are the ones I have landed on after trying quite a few different ones. Another AAE one, Max Hunter, very high profile. So great, it really reaches your nose. If you got problems with that, try the AAE Hunter. I wouldn't shoot them off the shelf. You'll need an arrow rest. I shoot with an arrow rest, and they seem to fly okay. It's just a very high, they've got quite a large surface area. They are quite high. I mean, if I check them out here, we are looking at, what are we looking at? Yeah, so 14.8 millimeters. There's also the AAE Pro Max, which is sort of slightly the same profile, but just slightly the same shape, but just a shorter profile, and these are 11.3. They're all right. They don't seem to stick very well for me. I've tried them on a few shafts. Maybe it's the glue. I don't know. I have a bit of trouble. True flight feathers, never had one come off. I always shoot with the wrap on. They never seem to come off. I mean, I'll have to take the whole wrap off. And the AAE Plastifletch, the EP26s, all right, yeah, I haven't had a few come off, but you know, they're not too bad. So anyway, these works well for me. I do have a True Flight shield cut as well. It's a 3-inch shield cut feather, and it's a great feather. If you want a little bit more stabilization, then this is probably a very good feather. It is just have that little bit more surface area, adds a little bit more drag down range. Whether it makes a huge difference, I don't know. I haven't really done much testing, but I like the parabolic shape, as it gives quite sort of a nice quiet flight as well. So that's a little bit about fletchings. Have a little experiment, just showing you what's worked for me, because it is quite important that you find something that has got the right distance or give you enough height to actually be able to reach the nose. I think we're getting sort of starting to get to the point where I'll be wrapping things up. There are a couple of things I would say about psycho triggers in general, and the feather to nose technique. There are others out there. There are others that might even be better. To be honest with you, if I shoot in the UK and I shoot under NFAS rules, and I'll mainly shoot bare bow, and under those rules, you're not allowed to put a clicker on. You're not allowed to put a clicker on. If I could do it, I would probably put a clicker on. Just a limb-based one where you put it's got a little click-clack thing on the limb with a cord going to the string. It just takes the hassle of refletching arrows every time you want to change the draw length where you set off that clicker. It takes a lot of hassle out. But on the other hand, the feather to nose, once you've got things fletched up and working, you know, you're not relying on having a cord that can maybe stretch. So I think you need to, if you're free to use whatever you want to use, try and experiment. Try the sear grip. Or the grip sear. You can have a tap sear as well, so a little sear on the tap. There's obviously the Olympic style one where you have that little other metal or carbon fiber or whatever metal or material you want to use going over the arrow. Have a look at some Olympic archers shoot that what they use, but you need to have that arrow length. That's the same. You have some adjustability on the clicker, I believe, but the arrow length is obviously, you can't just pick up a longer arrow and shoot with the same setup. Then the feather to nose, and there's a limb mounted clickers as well. Experiment, see what works for you. None of these are particularly expensive. What I would say is that before I started on this journey using a clicker or a psycho trigger to control my shot, I mean, I could be pretty accurate, but I wasn't really in control of it. I mean, what I used to do was that I would go out and I'll be at full draw and I'll be under the target and I would slowly lift up, and as soon as that tip of the arrow was remotely close to where I thought it would be, that arrow would just fly, and I couldn't control it. And same with my compound bow. I do shoot compound bow as well, and I was shooting with a wrist release. And coming back, and that trigger was, you know, very sensitive, and I'll be just under and I lift it up and then I punch that trigger. I couldn't control it. And with the compound bow, I changed the wrist release to a trigger that's, I'm not going to go too much into this, but to something that was a lot higher. So instead of actually pushing the trigger, you curl your finger around and then you actually use your whole hand to pull through the shot. So you're pulling through the shot, and it gives you a surprise release because you don't know when that's gonna go. So I can hold on target, and all I have to concentrate on is a similar thing as shooting my bear bow, is that all I have to concentrate on is just the pulling. If you do want to gain some control over your shot, you know, I think using a technique like this is going to help you, you know, and it has certainly benefited me a lot. It has not come without frustration, and I hope that this video will just help you maybe answer some of your questions, and maybe help you avoid some of the pitfalls that I have made. And don't be afraid to experiment. And sometimes you do have to go one step back to get 2 steps ahead. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you for watching, and don't forget to enjoy. Bye bye.